Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Professor Rizzi, for inviting me, and also to those who organized this conference. Thank you very much. I count it as a privilege. Thank you. And yeah, so you've had a talk on the Mabia languages already. So what I'm going to do here is just, I pick one of the languages and I'm going to, go deeper into it, which is Kasem. So this talk is basically in two parts. The first part I'm going to talk on the focus interpretation in this language, and also then I would bring the different focus marking patterns in Kasem and then propose like, an analysis for those different patterns. So as a starting point, so there is a quote here from Ikis, 1998, that says, identificational focus has to be consistently distinguished from a mere information focus, as it has syntactic and semantic properties that a mere information focus does not share. So basically, when you have identificational focus and new information focus, the claim is that they should have different structure, basically. So, and this claim has been confirmed, right, in some West African languages, especially those without morphological focus in situ marker. So, for example, in Akan and Ga, in 1 and 2. So, in 1, this is data from Akan, from Grubich et al. So, if you have the question, who did Owura beat? You can answer by saying Owura beat Akwasi, and then speaker B can say Akwasi na Owura, And what this means is that it was Akwasi that Owura beat, so you contrast, there's a contrastive focus here. And in this case, you have to use a morphosyntactic means to bring in the identificational focus or contrastive focus. And in 2, this is the case of Ga. So in Ga, the same thing happens, right? So in 2A, that is the new information focus. So let's assume speaker A answered that Kofi reads a newspaper, and then speaker B tries to correct that proposition that it is a newspaper that Kofi reads. And now you have, the focus fronted followed by a focus marker. So you see this distinction between new information focus and contrastive focus, structure-wise. And apart from ex-situ focus languages, right, or ex-situ focus like this case in Akan and Ga, there are actually languages which show contrastive or even identificational focus with a morphologically marked in situ focus. So the case is Mejumba. So in Mejumba, there is actually a focus marker R that marks contrastivity, that has contrastivity as part of its lexical meaning, and that is from a new paper by Zimmerman and Colloque. So in this language, if you look at example 3, you ask the question, to whom did Nana give food? So without the R marker, that is in 3B, this is a new information focus. So Nana give food to Nami. No R marker. This is, new information. And then in 4, the same question, and you have the R marker, right? So Nana give food to Nami. So with this R marker, that is a contrastive focus. So you see that there is actually structural difference. In this case, there is morphological difference. So there is a morphological focus marker that actually brings in the contrastive meaning, of this focus. And Awing is another language with similar pattern where there is an in situ morphological focus marker that encodes contrastivity. So there are two questions, right? So if you recall what has been said just now about Mabia languages, where you have an in situ focus morphologically marked. So the question is, what happens, right, in these languages that obligatorily mark in situ focus, right, as well as ex situ focus with a morphological focus morpheme or particle? What happens in such language? That is, and so if you look at in 5, that is the case of Kasem that we just saw in the talk that was given earlier. So what did Adam buy? Adam Oyegilore Mo, that is, he bought a car. So Mo is obligatory to. So without this Mo, then it's not possible. I mean, the sentence will just be a declarative sentence, so it doesn't show focus. So what happens in such languages? And Likwakwan also, like we saw, the same. You have an obligatory focus marker. And then the second question I also want to answer is, this language has different focus marking patterns. We've seen some in the earlier talk, but I'm going to show that there are also other markings in this language. So how do we account, right, for these different focus marking patterns found in CASM? So I have, these are my claims, that is in page 3. With regards to interpretation, I'm going to claim that actually new information versus contrastive interpretation are not tied to in situ, ex situ focus, but it's more pragmatically induced through the context or even the current question under discussion. So what it means is that contrastivity is not part of the lexical meaning of the focus particle per se in this language, unlike what we saw in Mejumba, where when you have the R marker in Mejumba, then you have a contrastive focus. And in addition to contrastive and exhaustive interpretation, I'm going to show that ex situ focus has additional pragmatic or semantic effect, like narrativity in CASM. And then structurally, I will claim that the focus marker forms a constituent. Like we've seen that in the earlier talk again, with the focus constituent in the ex situ position. And there is no evidence, at least in this language, for a close internal low fork P in the VP periphery. So basically, I'm going to adopt a what has been called the operator particle approach that covers different focus marking patterns in this language. And so in 7, this is the way the structure looks like, where there are so F will stand for the logical focus. That is what answers a question like, what did Adam do, or what did Adam eat? So basically F. So in this case, the VP is the logical focus, or an XP, let's assuming this is a DP, can be the logical focus, or even something like a constituent, a subconstituent of the adjunction site of the particle can also be the logical focus. So there are different logical focus, but then we see that the particle can adjoin, to a position such as this. So what I'm going to assume is that all you have the focus P, and then the fork head requires that whatever is the logical focus should be in the scope of that focus head, so that we can derive the semantic contribution of focus. So this is the roadmap. I will just briefly talk about background to CASM, and then focus marking with interpretation in CASM, and then I will bring data that shows the indirect focus marking patterns in this language, and then propose an analysis and conclude with some open questions. So I will not go through this because we've seen already that, we've seen in the earlier talk the Mabia languages and where they are spoken. I just want to point out that the data or what I'm working on is on this dialect. So CASM has 3 dialects, but my data is on the NK1, Navrongo CASM. So that is what I'm going to work on or show you. And in 8, just shows that CASM is an SVO language. Yeah, and just to quickly thank my speakers. So these are 2 speakers that I'm working on. I'm working with Felix and Emmanuel. So focus marking with interpretation in CASM, morphological in situ focus. So CASM has new information focus in the situ position, and which is common to many West African languages, which answers a WH question as in 9. So in 9, if you have a question like what did Adam give to Zima, you can answer by saying Adam, Per, Zima, Cambia, Mo. Again, Mo is obligatory, and that is a direct object focus. Or you asked, who did Adam give a pot to? And then you answer Adam, Per, Zima, Mo, Cambia. Now you see that the focus marker now adjoins to the indirect object in this case. So we see a case of new information focus in the in situ position. So to 3.2, what I'm going to show is that morphological in situ focus can also be used for contrastive focus in this language. So if you have this different context, so the first context is with disjunctive question. You ask a question, did Adam buy a car and a house? And then you answer, he bought a car, that is not a house, he bought a car. You have the Mo, just similar to what we see with new information focus. And with the link question, I would jump that. So the same thing happens because I want to talk more on the corrective context. So in corrective context, which is really a clear case of contrastive focus. If you ask the question, what did Adam buy? And then the answer is, you can have an answer like, he bought a car, right? But it can be corrected. So assuming this is a wrong information and you want to correct this information, awo oyigi so more, that is, no, he didn't buy a car, he actually bought a house. So if you look at the two constructions, 14B and C, I mean, both look the same, except for the fact that, of course, now we're having house, but I mean, the focus marker and, or the focus, the logical focus and the focus marker are in their institute position, right? So we have the same structure with regards to new information focus and corrective focus. Another test that I took from IKIS is what I call the logical consequence test. And in this test, it involves a pair of sentences in which the first sentence involves a conjoined DP and the second does not. So if we are dealing with an identificational focus, then the second sentence, that is 15B in this case, should not be the logical consequence of the first sentence 15A, right? So in 15A, the sentence is Adam, you go. So if, assuming we have an identificational context, focus context, Adam, you, ya go, chorode, now more, that is, it was a fowl and a cow that Adam slaughtered, right? And then in 15B, where you have just one DP and not the conjoined DP, it is not a logical consequence of the first sentence if we are dealing with identificational focus, because that would be exhaustive. However, if it is a new information focus, so assuming we have a new information focus context, like a question like, what did Adam slaughter? And the answer is Adam slaughtered a fowl and a cow. And then you can also, you can also say Adam slaughtered a fowl. So 16B is a logical consequence in a new information focus context. It's a logical consequence of 16A. If you see it as like an entailment relationship, for example. So 16A basically entails, 16B. So what we see so far is that with institute focus, we can have both identificational focus or new information focus in the institute position. Moving to the institute focus, when you front to the left periphery, in addition to the contrastive focus that we find with institute focus focus marks other focus interpretation effect like mediativity. And mediativity simply means it's a type of focus that's related to new information, which is particularly surprising, right, or unexpected. And so if we look at a context as in 17, so assuming the usual cost of cutting hair in Ghana is 150 cedis, for example. However, due to scarcity of fuel, there is price hike, so price increase. And on our way to John, he went to have his hair cut and had to pay 500 cedis, instead of the 150 cedis. So maybe John's friend asked him, John, how much did you cut your hair? So in Kasem, 18B it's not acceptable, to, if you want to, bring in the unexpectedness or the surprise. If you say, Afane, are you 500 CD more, right? But when you front the focus, then it really shows, the mediative focus, right? So when you front it, then it shows that you didn't expect to pay 500 CDs instead of paying 150 CD. So this is similar to the pattern in Mejumba 2, Akan and Ga. So when it comes to the left periphery or the exit focus, Kasem is similar to these other languages. But with regards to contrastive focus, it's different because we find identificational focus or contrastive focus marked in the institute position in Kasem. So as an interim summary on this first part, unlike Akan, Ga, and Mejumba, we've seen that Kasem does not distinguish identification versus information focus in the sense of IKIS, right? So no structural difference per se. And thus different focus interpretation are compatible with institute focus, like we've seen. And the institute focus, however, allows additional pragmatic interpretation like mediativity, in addition to contrastivity in the institute focus. Thus, it remains to be seen what the focus specification would actually be with regards to identification focus in this language. So to the second part, which is with regards to the focus marking pattern in this language. So all the examples we've seen so far we've seen a direct morphological marking of the logical focus and the focus particle. So when you ask the question, what did Adam, so for example, in 19a, what did Adam buy? We see that the adjunction of the focus particle, it adjoins directly to the logical focus. That's what we've seen so far. However, there are cases of focus marking that are indirect with regards to the focus particle. And those cases have been called anti-pi-piping or pi-piping cases. So going to the pi-piping case, so originally we know that the term pi-piping actually was introduced by Rose to describe instances of movement, right, where a focus or an expression takes more than itself when it moves to the left periphery. That is the usual case or the common case, that is in 20 here, where the focus from this point, it pi-pipes to the left periphery. But additionally, apart from this kind of cases, Brannan and Elwine use the term pi-piping to include instances where actually the focus particle adjoins to a phrase that contains the logical focus. So no movement, right? Movement is possible, of course, but we also have cases where the focus particle just adjoins to a phrase that actually contains the logical focus to mean pi-piping. So that is in 21 and 22. So in 22, for example, we have the logical focus as the YP, right? And then the focus marker of particle adjoins to the phrase that contains the logical focus. So that has been called pi-piping by Brennan and Elwine. And we have such cases with deep internal focus. So we've seen this in the previous talk, where if you ask the question, whose fowl did Adam slaughter? Adam slaughtered Peter's fowl, right? So Mo cannot follow Peter. So Peter is inside this DP. Rather, Mo, the focus particle, would follow the whole the whole of the DP that actually contains the logical focus. So we see that there is no correspondence between the adjunction side and the logical focus. The same with 24. Did Adam slaughter John's fowl? No, Adam slaughtered Peter's fowl, right? The same asymmetry can be found. And not only deep internal focus, with verb focus also, we find this pi-piping case, where if you ask the question, what did Adam do? What did Adam do to the fowl? And then the answer is Adam slaughtered the fowl, right? So Mo does not follow. So the focus here is go, that is the word for kill or slaughter in this language. But Mo doesn't follow the word for kill or the verb. It rather follows the old VP. So that is a pi-piping case. So basically, the adjunction side is different from the logical focus. And the second case is just more or less like the direct opposite of the pi-piping, which is the anti-pi-piping case, and it has been called a different term like discontinuous focus or even partial focus movement in the literature. So what happened in anti-pi-piping case is that the logical focus, or the focus marker actually adjoins to a subconstituent of the logical focus in this case, right? So you have, for example, the VP as the focus, and then the focus particle adjoins to the object. So now you have a case where the adjunction site of the focus particle is inside the logical focus. And that is the case with closer focus in Kasem. So in Kasem, in 28, if you ask the question, what happened? So this requires a TP focus, or like the old plus. And then you answer Adam Mo Tonge. Now, the OTP, right, where I put the F, is the logical focus, but Mo, the focus particle, actually adjoins to the subject, right? So because if you have Mo adjoining to the whole clause, as in 28D, this is infelicitous to this question, what happened? It cannot answer the question, what happened, right? And this can only answer, so 28D can only answer a direct object question or even a VP focus question, basically. And this shows anti-pi-piping because the site of the adjunction of the particle is inside the logical, is a subconstituent of the logical focus. Not only closer focus, but also VP focus. Right? VP focus also shows anti-pi-piping. I mean, with this language, it's at first difficult to see because this is an SVO language, right? It's difficult to see where the adjunction site is because we can say that the adjunction site of mo, the focus particle, is to the DP, direct object, or it's probably just to the whole, the whole VP because of the position. But actually, I'm going to show that it is not this case, but this case. That is, the mo actually adjoins to the DP, that is direct object in a VP focus, and not to the whole VP. And that's what I show in 29. So in 29, this is a transitive construction. If you ask the question, what did Adam do yesterday? You require a VP focus. What did he do yesterday? And then you answer by saying, Adam slaughtered a fowl yesterday. Now, again, 29b does not tell us much because mo just, follows the whole VP. I mean, that linearly, that's what we see, right? But interestingly, you can actually front, so in 29c, you can front the direct object. You can say, Choromo, Adam, go, dim. Now, when you front the direct object, this is a felicitous answer to the question, what did Adam do yesterday, right? Although, of course, this can also be used to answer the question, what did Adam slaughter yesterday? But interestingly, you can use this 29c to answer the question, what did Adam do yesterday? So this actually shows antipiping, of the VP focus. And interestingly, I also looked at ditransitive construction. So in ditransitive construction, we see, a stronger support for this antipiping claim for VP focus. Because in 30, you ask the question, what did Adam do? You require a VP focus. And in 30b, Adam per tonomo John. So you have the direct object precedes the indirect object, right? And mo follows the direct object. And if in 30c, if you front the direct object, this is a felicitous answer to the question, what did Adam do? That is the context created. So you can say tonomo Adam per John. However, if you have mo following the whole of the clause, right, following the indirect object in this case, it's infelicitous. You cannot use that to answer the question, what did Adam do? And even if you front John mo, the way we fronted the direct object in this case, if you front John mo that is in 30e, again, this is an infelicitous answer to the question, what did Adam do? So this really shows that we have an antipiping, case here. But of course, we have to explain why, mo follows the direct object and not the indirect object. I'll come to that later. So, as a proposed analysis, so we've seen different marking, right? So different marking patterns in this language where the first case is we have a direct marking, the logical focus and the focus particle have like a correspondence with adjunction site. And then we've also seen cases where we have piping, where the adjunction site of the focus particle is actually the DP, for example, that contains the logical focus, like the possessor focus that we see. That is the piping case. And thirdly, we've seen a case where we have anti-piping, where the adjunction site of the focus particle is inside the logical focus. So we have these cases. And then the question is, how do we, account for these different focus marking patterns? I'm adopting the operator particle approach that is recently discussed by Brannan and Ellenwine in 2003. And the simple, what this approach is about is that the focus particle or the operator particle theory actually accounts for these different patterns. And what it means is that there's actually a high interpretable focus operator which has the logical focus in its scope. That is the requirement. So the operator needs to have logical focus in its scope. And the high interpretable focus operator actually agrees with the focus particle just to create a link. So with in situ focus, right? So the focus particle, my assumption is that the focus particle is a syntactic element, right? So the assumption is that when you have like a particle phrase, it just means you have a part plus XP, right? So the projection of the particle phrase is just the combination of both the particle and the phrase that it adjoins to. So it's like transparent basically. And the focus particle targets, like we saw in the previous talk, the cluster spine, that is a projection in the cluster spine, that is what it targets. So in 31, 32 is the structure of the sentence in 31, for example, that is a direct adjunction. So when you have the focus particle adjoining directly to what is in focus, that is the logical focus. So, and then you have agreement with a high focus operator. So this is very simple case, right? This is a direct adjunction case, and it's very simple and easy. But we also have cases of piping, right? Recall, where the focus particle actually adjoins to the phrase that consists, right? The phrase that consists of the logical focus, that is Peter in this case. And what happened in this case is that, again, the focus particle adjoins to the DP. So this is the case of the possessor that is in focus now, adjoins to the DP, and then you have basically the focus operator as both the particle and even the focus in the logical focus in its scope, which is the requirement of the operator particle theory. All you need to do is have the logical focus in the scope. And with regards to cluster focus, so in 35, what happened, right? Recall that in cluster focus, you have the TP as the logical focus, but the focus particle adjoins to the subject. So, to the subject, yeah. So what happened here, okay, I think there is a mix-up here. So in 36 is actually a case of antipiping with the VP as the logical focus. So the VP is the logical focus, but this is an antipiping case where the mole adjoins to the direct object, right? And then you have the logical focus in the scope of the focus operator and also the particle phrase. So with regards to ex-situ focus, so with ex-situ focus, we have, okay, I want this to go. Okay, in ex-situ focus, so what happens there is that we just assume an EPP which triggers the movement of the particle phrase, right? So in this case, you have a direct adjunction where the particle phrase adjoins to the logical focus XP, and then because of EPP on the fork head, then you have movement to the spec of the focus phrase. So for ex-situ antipiping, the particle moves, I mean, we can assume it moves through the edge of the VP phase in order to associate, to be accessible rather for onward movement to the left periphery. And this is a case of, now in antipiping of VP as the logical focus. So if the VP is the logical focus, you have ex-situ, we've seen data where, for example, the direct object actually moves to the left periphery, even though the VP is the logical focus. And that's what happens here. And again, the assumption here is that the fronted constituent, can reconstruct just for, semantic interpretation at LF. But, with all this structure and analysis, there are still questions to be asked. So, for example, the question is with regards, at what point, right, of the derivation does the focus particle adjunction occur? At what point? And what I'm assuming is that the particle is actually late adjoined during the spell out of the phase that equals to the logical focus or contains the logical focus or even contains the particle host, in the case of antipiping. And this is not a new move, as it follows, from a growing body of studies where they primarily connect the timing of adjunction to phaser spell out. And secondly, how does the language determine, right? We've seen this case. How does it determine which subconstituent of the focus to target for focus particle placement? How does it determine, which subconstituent to target? And again, I'm assuming adopting the leftmost requirement from Brannan and Allewine, which says that during phaser spell out, let's adjoin the particle to a phrase that is left aligned, or is preferably left aligned, or overlaps with the logical focus. So we see a case of a variation, so it can be left aligned. I mean, that is a condition, or it is preferably left aligned, or it overlaps with the logical focus. But I want to bring this out that Fancello and Lenotova also have, an earlier proposer, in this line, especially in their section 3. So the antipiping case of TP focus and VP focus basically targets the subject and the direct object respectively. That's what we have seen. But with regards to the VP focus, right, going by the leftmost condition, would have assumed that the mo, right, the V in the VP focus is actually the leftmost constituent. But so we would have assumed that the focus particle adjoins, to the V. But what we see is that it actually adjoins to the object DP instead. So basically, the adjoining is to the leftmost maximal projection and not just to the head. It has to be a maximal projection. And the same happens with TP focus, right, with subject DP adjunction. And for piping case, right, the adjunction of the focus particle is preferably left aligned or just overlaps, right, with the logical focus, and the particle placement rule or requirement actually allows such variation. I will not go through this, but maybe we can come back to it maybe during question. And so this section is just to show that an alternative analysis, where we have what you see is what you get, case, is probably bound to fail with the different focus marking patterns that we have seen in this language. So there are further questions, which is, the first is, how do we know, right, with this kind of different patterns, with the adjunction site and the logical focus? So how do we know, how exactly do we know what the logical focus is, right, especially with these anti-piping or piping cases? And the simple answer is the realization of what the logical focus is dependent on the current question. So the question, the question actually gives us what the logical focus is, because we see that there are cases of asymmetry between the focus particle and the logical focus. And secondly, with regards to the different interpretations, right, that I showed in the first part of the talk. And with respect to the different interpretation, I assume that this cannot be distinguished by a purely morphosyntactic analysis, right? It has to be more of the pragmatics of the discourse rather than the morphosyntax. And if the obligatory focus particle, as what we found in Mejumba, if that particle is contrastive, then we must explain why it is obligatory in new information focus. And lastly, you can see Rochmont, for a discussion on the overlapping between focus as new information and focus as alternatives. So in conclusion, with respect to focus interpretation, we've seen that unlike West African languages, right, where we find this structural distinction between new information and identification focus, like Ga and Akan that I showed earlier, this does not hold in CASM, because new information focus and contrastive focus, have similar structure. And in addition to contrastivity, S2 focus has additional pragmatic interpretation like mutativity in CASM. And with regards to focus marking patterns, so the operator particle approach accounts for the different focus marking patterns in this language, and of course can be extended to languages like Lipapan. And the focus semantics requirement is for the high focus operator to have the logical focus in its scope. That is the requirement. And the placement of the particle is guided by the late adjunction of the focus particle to a phrase that is either left aligned or preferably left aligned, overlaps with the logical focus. So basically, the focus particle must be close, right, to the logical focus as much as possible. And cartographically, there is no evidence for a low focus projection, at least at the very level in CASM. And this research contributes to an ongoing debate on the forming matching or mismatch between focus realization strategies and interpretation. And there is an open question which we can again discuss, which is if the particle is late adjoined, right, to a completed phase, how do we apply syntactic processes like agreement and even movement to the particle phrase if it is late adjoined? And an idea is that actually there are different approaches to what can or what cannot be done to a phase, right? Because while the traditional approach to phases restricts, of course, syntactic processes into the phase, there are other approaches like especially Boscovich, which allow the availability of phase to certain syntactic process. And again, I must confess there is more to be said on this part of the analysis, but you can also see Fancelo and Lenatova for a potential solution or analysis where they also assume something that is similar to this even after linearization. And thank you very much for listening to my talk.